Hi, I'm Bill Hodges. Spotlight on Government is not conflict television, but rather a safe and sane place for public servants to express their views and communicate directly with their constituents. Those who would scream and yell to rudely disrupt informational meetings have no place on our show. However, if you are one of the people who really wants to learn what's happening at all levels of government, this is the place for you. Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government, and we have with us today Representative Seth McKe, District 63, House of Representatives, Florida. It's fabulous to have you with us. You've been really busy this last 6 months.
It's been a busy time. Thank you for having me, Bill. Appreciate it very much.
What's gone on in the legislature?
Well, it's an interesting time in government. There's no question. As I've shared with you before, I mean, we have been dealing with a dramatic reduction in the budgets.
I guess.
Because the economy, in Florida has certainly hurt Floridians, hurt businesses in Florida, and the numbers of housing transactions and automobile transactions and the transactions in the economy that send dollars to the state treasury have been dramatically reduced. When I came to the legislature in 2006, we had an overall state budget of about $74.5 billion, and we left last month, or two months ago, passing a budget of about $64.5 million. So you can see, we've had a dramatic reduction in what we've had, the resources that we've had to spend on government services.
I get nosebleeds when we start talking billions of dollars.
A billion is a big number. Yeah, anytime it starts with a B, that's a big number. That's right, Bill.
It's huge. Yes, and we cut the budget by $10 billion roughly?
Over the last 3 years, that's exactly right. And primarily that's as a result of the economy. But it's an important thing for folks to understand that taxpayers in Florida, in my opinion, have a very good protection, and that is that we are constitutionally mandated to balance the budget. Unlike the situation in California, so to speak, where we can only spend the dollars that we generate, and we have to balance the budget. So what we saw happening is that the revenues that it would take to produce the same amount of services the prior year, we weren't taking in as much money. So the only way to deal with that, you have only two options. It's either raise the revenues, go back to taxes, or reduce spending. The bottom line is we did a little bit of both of that. We've cut about about $9.5 billion over several years out of the budget. We also increased some revenue. We increased about $1 billion through some fee increases, but also through some gambling expansion, which candidly I did not support, but through.
I'm not sure that I like the idea of giving one group monopoly on gambling, but that's a whole different show.
Right. No, I agree with you, and I don't support. I haven't voted for any of the expansions of gambling. I don't support. I think we ought to be getting our revenue from other revenue sources that generate income and generate industry and generate jobs, and are not preying on some of the most vulnerable Floridians. But that said, that's where we are, and that's the situation that we're in. So yeah, there's no question it's been a busy time to be in government. And
I'm not totally against gambling.
Sure.
I've been known. I was in Las Vegas here recently and
Sure.
spent 3 days and lost $3.
Well, that's good for you.
I didn't win any at all.
Right.
But the fact is, for myself, but, I remember a friend of ours years ago who was very well situated as a young person, lived in a hotel in Washington. Her family was very wealthy, and they had a maid. And every day the maid would ask to see the paper because she'd paid 25 cents for the numbers. It wasn't a state lottery. And Nancy said to her one day, "Why do you waste your money?" She said, "Because every morning you get up, you know you're going on to law school or you're going on to this. Every morning I get up, I know I'm going to clean toilets. That 25 cents is a way of possibly getting me out of this." So gambling does give some people hope, but it gives a lot of people pain, and I'm with you on that.
And it gives some people despair,
Yeah.
and when you have, and also there are other problems associated with it with respect to crime and the other things. And when you have 67 sheriffs telling you that you ought not to do this, I think
Really?
I think it was not good policy for the state. But that, that said, that was not the biggest increase in revenue. That was approximately $200 million potentially in revenues to the state.
Which is a drop in the bucket.
Which, when you talk about
it's a fairly good drop.
When you talk about $10 billion in
yeah.
shortfall, that's it's not a significant bite at the apple.
But your biggest thing, I think, in the legislature is energy, is it not?
Yes, sir. I spend most of my time doing energy work.
So let's talk about energy today, because
sure.
I know that's near and dear to your heart, and a lot of things you want to discuss about it. So let's go with energy.
Sure. I'm concerned about Florida's energy future on a lot of levels. Florida is a peninsula, so we have to import the bulk of our energy from, we take natural gas, comes across in pipelines. We import oil through all of the ports in Florida. What we've never participated in is the supply side of the equation. And so you've seen, it's certainly been in the press recently, but you've seen me take a position, which actually, it's only the last year that we've actually gained some momentum on it. I filed the legislation 3 years in a row encouraging Congress to lift the ban on drilling offshore in Florida. And in the last year, we really have gotten some momentum as folks have realized that really not only are we leaving a lot of money on the table from Florida's budget perspective, we're leaving the potential for a really great boost in our economy on the table. And so I've really worked hard on that issue. I think it's high time. We know the technology is there to extract oil and natural gas in a clean, environmentally safe, environmentally sound, and not unsightly way. And so while we have the barges coming in and out of Florida, the potentially dangerous part of that business, it makes all the sense in the world that we should allow Florida to participate in the revenue piece of that picture. Alabama funds 10% of their state government from leases and revenue derived from that business.
And actually, Alaska sends out checks.
And Alaska sends out checks to
their individual people,
to constituents
as a part of that.
The state of Louisiana is just shy of $1 billion a year, and we anticipate with Florida's leases and the reserves that are off Florida, we anticipate much more than that, and the potential really to have a dramatic impact on our budget. But also our economy. We've been talking for so long. All politicians have been talking for a long time about diversifying the economy and attracting high-skill, high-wage jobs. The lowest job in this industry is $76,000, and so these are high-skill, high-wage, high-tech jobs. Yes, sir. The lowest one of these people we be bringing in is $76,000, and so we're talking about a dramatic expansion of a new industry in the state that also happens to contribute revenue. So we don't have to go tax people. We don't have to go prey on gambling interests or prey on vulnerable people. We can bring an industry to the state that's clean, that's environmentally safe, that is well done. And in Florida, we have to make sure it's done right and done well, because we have so much of an investment to protect, while also contributing to our economic base as well as our state revenue picture.
Now you mentioned the barges.
Sure.
You're not proposing that we would put refineries in the state of Florida, or are you?
Well, currently the bulk of the refining business is in other parts of the Gulf. At this point, most of that would stay there.
So we would still have the barges.
Right. We would still potentially have the barges. I think our policy, let me be real frank about what the policy would do. Currently, there's a moratorium, but there are two moratoriums. There's a federal moratorium in federal waters on any type of expansion or exploration. There's a state moratorium inside state waters. What our legislation does is A, encourage Congress to lift the federal piece, but B, allow the state cabinet to entertain proposals and to entertain proposals for those leases inside state waters. So all of the details of that should be figured out. They shouldn't be written in statute. In other words, you shouldn't write what the specific technology is, where all that goes, where the different facilities go. You should leave that to the Minerals Management Service, and you should let the cabinet interview those people. And the legislative proposal is simply giving the authority to the cabinet to have the conversation. At this point in Florida, the cabinet doesn't even have the authority to have the conversation.
With the state and the Fed Could we decide in Florida waters to go ahead and drill now?
Yes, sir.
Without the Fed agreeing also?
Yes, sir. Inside state waters, which
Really?
is that.
How far does our state waters go?
That's 10 miles. That's within 10 miles.
10 miles.
Yes, sir. So really, in our proposal that doesn't envision anything visible inside of 6 miles. There are oil reserves inside of 6 miles that would be gotten at through directional drilling or even some onshore directional drilling, but there'd be nothing visible above surface out and inside of 6 miles.
I was really against drilling for a long time, and I have to admit that I'm not convinced about it yet, because
Sure.
I'm afraid whenever we tap our oil reserves here in this country and we lower the cost of fuel, for one thing, it makes us foolish. I remember back in '73 when we went through the first oil crisis and we did nothing.
Correct.
We got more hungry for oil, if anything, than we did now because we quit using coal.
Correct.
I'm afraid that if we start with 3% of the world's reserves and 25% of the use, we can't drill our way out of this. We've got to go to other things. How will this help us to go to other energy resources?
Two answers to that question. The first is the picture you describe it was only oil. We have huge reserves in this country of natural gas, and we know that the country is being powered on natural gas right now through, and the state of Florida is headed to 50% dependent on natural gas for electricity production. So that's the first answer is, you got two energy resources that need to be dealt with. The oil is one piece, the natural gas is the other. The second piece is that we have worked very hard in the state to position ourselves to participate in renewable energies, solar, wind, biomass, other things. The problem we have in Florida is the research and the technology is not advanced enough to give us a return on that investment yet. In other words, it's not far enough along to go commercial with some of these technologies, and we've got to invest. Florida has got to invest more dollars into the research and development of the technologies to bring renewable resources. Our goal would be to get to 20% renewable energy in the state for all of the electricity production. That's a very good goal, and I hope that we can get there. Currently, we're at 1.8%. And so we've got a long way to go, and we've got a lot of investment that government needs to make. But as I just finished talking to you about the position we're in budgetarily, we don't have the resources to invest right now as we should. And so our proposals tie a significant amount of the revenue associated from offshore oil and natural gas exploration to the research and development of renewable technologies. And so that's really an important key. We've got to find a revenue source to do the research and development for renewable resources, and I think this is a perfect avenue to give us the opportunity to do that.
I think more people would come on board if we really, really believed that government was going to use this windfall, if you will, to put it to work and make it work for the future rather than spending for additional things today.
Well,
is there any way we can guarantee that that'll happen?
Two answers to that. I'm one of 160 members of the legislature, but I'll give you my opinion on it, and that is that, in my opinion, the two primary areas where we ought to be spending the dollars that come from this particular revenue source are A, investing in renewable technologies, that what I just finished talking about, and B, education. We know that the state of Louisiana and the state of Texas fund almost their entire education system through lease revenues from the oil and natural gas industries. We know that we are pretty much choked right now on the education system in Florida. We don't have any more available dollars to spend, and we have needs that are out there. So I think those are the two primary areas that I see that we ought to be spending the revenues from this from offshore exploration.
Well, I moved to Florida in roughly 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Just as the boom came with housing,
right,
and the taxes that were generated by houses selling for more and more and more. And I grew up on a farm. Be honest with you, no matter how much we threw in the trough for the hogs would line up and eat it.
They want more.
And it scares me when I see any new initiative coming with dollars. I look at the universities in this state, and the professors and the university management are earning huge sums, and they're always saying, well, yeah, but if we don't pay this, then Georgia will, and they'll move over there. And then Georgia says, but Florida's paying more. And the teacher down at the bottom gets very little in comparison to what these people at the top are getting.
Yeah,
and we could pour more money into education, but I know where it's going to go. If it's the past is any description of the future, I want to see this money. If you're going to drill in the Gulf, I think most people would like to see this money not put into all these other projects, but to go to giving us solar and wind and all the other things that'll make us energy efficient later on.
I completely agree with you. The solar piece is important. The solar is probably the most promising renewable technology, and biomass. Those two are probably the most promising technologies for Florida. The wind piece is not as promising for Florida. Number one, because we don't have the constant wind currents consistency more than we have. Lots of gusts when we have storms and things like that, but we don't have the consistency. So we know that those two technologies are probably the key. The biomass piece, from a fuel perspective, is probably the most promising for Florida agriculture. And I completely agree that and as I said, that's where we need to be investing a lot of our resources.
But doesn't biomass carry with it another problem? I don't see how biomass is going to be a whole lot different than what we've already done to the glades and to all this fertilizer running off, because biomass requires that you have to grow something. To grow something, you've got to use fertilizers, and we've already got a dead spot out there in the Bay of Florida that's huge because of all this runoff. How would you do biomass without adding to that problem?
Well, we know I'll answer that in two ways. First of all, we know that Florida has a unique opportunity to produce renewable biofuel that is not made from food crops. One problem we are seeing in the United States is, as we move towards renewable fuels that are made from corn, where the price of corn is going up,
and it's in everything.
And when you start to cannibalize your food source, that's a bad position to put the United States in, to put America in. The one thing that we've got left in America is that we produce more than enough food for ourselves, and we export food. In fact, the government pays folks to grow some food. And we've got to maintain that position. The one thing that biomass brings to Florida is primarily, particularly if you talk about the sugar industry, a lot of it is produced from the byproduct of those industries. In other words, this is waste product that is already in production. So these are crops and these are groves and things like that are already in production, and it's using the waste product from those operations and making it into fuel, as opposed to.
So we're using things that we have to store, destroy, or do something with. We can make it into biomass.
That's exactly right. Using the waste products of the crops that already exist now, as opposed to. That's why Florida's in a unique perspective. We have the opportunity to use the waste product as opposed to growing new crops to cannibalize ourselves, like the corn industry is doing for corn-based ethanol.
And there's already riots in various countries because corn is getting too expensive.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so I think using the bagasse and the byproducts of some of the existing crops that we already have in Florida is the way to go. But there's got to be more research and development. You've got to get it from a concept to commercialization and to production. And and Florida's we're going to have to spend some dollars to get there. And I think so that's why I believe that a significant piece of the revenue generated from our initiative on offshore exploration should be in that direction.
Well, politics is the art of compromise. I think Winston Churchill said that. I'm not positive, but in order to get the drilling, it's going to require a lot of people to buy on and sign off. And I suspect that it will be very difficult to say this pot of money is going to go just to energy.
True. I mean, obviously, what you said about education is true for the most part. However, I do a lot of work in the community college system, and we have a lot of significant investments that need to be made in the community college system, because in order to attract the industry that we want to attract to the state, we've got to be able to turn some of these degree offerings out more quickly. And we've really gutted the community college system in the last couple of years because of budget cuts. So I think there are I think there are still areas in education where we've got some work to do. That's my opinion. I know a lot about, like I said, higher ed, and I think we've got some work to do, particularly in the community college system, in turning out workforce degrees. And degreed associates to work for some of the companies that we're trying to attract to Florida. So I think that you're exactly right. Everybody will be scrambling for money. That'll be our job to figure out how we dole out how you dole out the money. But I'll take that problem. I think that's a problem that we can figure out how to handle.
Let's move from that for a minute into transportation.
Sure.
Because I think that's probably one of the things that a lot of people are looking at today. How do I move from A to B and do it efficiently? We can't afford to build bigger and bigger and wider highways.
So keep adding lanes.
Yeah. Route 4 between Tampa and, well, it goes right through your district.
Yes, sir.
I don't have to tell you about how bad Route 4 is. I'd go anywhere not to have to go through there. In fact, from Sun City, I generally go the back roads all the way around, so I don't have to go up through there.
As do I.
Now, what can we look forward to transportation-wise? If the stimulus package comes into Florida, which I hope it does, because we have fooled to let it sit on the table, can we expect the high-speed rapid transit to be started in this state?
Sure. I think that's a great question. I agree with you that if we're already, I'm not sure if I were in Congress I would have voted for the stimulus package. I think a lot of the money is not well spent. That said, the best money that is in the stimulus package, the 8 or 10% that goes to transportation infrastructure, is, in my opinion, the best piece of the stimulus package. And I agree that I hope we are able to take advantage of that. One of the things I've enjoyed about being in the legislature and being on the Hillsborough County delegation has been my chairmanship of what we call the Bay Area Legislative Delegation, which I will come into next year, and that is a 9-county region surrounding Tampa Bay. And it's made up of all of the legislators of that 9-county region. And one of the prime initiatives of the Bay Area Legislative Delegation has been the TBARTA effort, or which is the goal of TBARTA, is the Regional Transportation Authority to assemble all of these projects. You've got the high-speed project that hopefully runs, at the end of the day, I hope it runs all the way from Tampa to the East Coast. We've also got a lot of projects in and out in the central Tampa Bay area to help move people around. And I think the Bay Area Legislative Delegation's efforts towards TBARTA have been very successful. We funded them the last 2 years for all of the design and all of the study for this sort of planned out combination of projects. In other words, not just taking project by project and hitting and missing throughout the region, but taking a regional approach and saying, where is it that we need to move people to, and what's the most effective way to do it? And I think you're going to be very happy with some of the results of the TBARTA studies.
Well, I understand as a result of that, we're kind of at the top of the list on this federal funds, too.
That's because of
all the work you guys have done.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Because of the legwork that's been, and I'm not going to take credit for it, the Bay Area Legislative Delegation has supported it very heavily, but it's primarily the TBARTA staff and the DOT staff that have helped us put this plan together, and you're exactly right, put us in position to be able to attract the federal dollars. So I mean, it's that that kind of regional planning takes a long time, and we've been working on this project for 5 or 6 years, and sometimes sometimes that's part of this business where you have to plod along and do the planning, but the fruits,
you may not even be there to see the end of it.
You may not even be there to see the end of it, but it's the right thing to do, and I think we so I think the answer to your question is affirmative. I mean, that's our goal, is to be able to more effectively move people throughout the region. And the other thing that the TBARTA has done is work on cooperation with the Metroplan Orlando group and have what we call a super regional approach to this. In other words, take their plan take their plan and put it together. So there've been I've been very encouraged by the super regional meetings that have happened between those two regions, and try to really do a great job bridging the entire Central Florida span from a transportation standpoint. So I think there's really encouraging planning going on right now. If we can through stimulus, through hopefully state investment going forward, if we can put the dollars to the map, I think we'll be well positioned.
I promised you a minute's time that you could talk about anything you wanted directly to your constituents. What would you like to tell them?
Well, candidly, I would say thank you very much for the opportunity that they give me to serve. It's certainly a privilege to serve in the Florida House of Representatives. It's a challenging time, but there's no question that we have budgetary challenges. But I think we're taking the right approach, and that is, a reduction in overall state government services, but trying to maintain a level of quality and not overtax our citizens. And I think that's the balance that we're trying to reach. And I would just take a minute to thank my constituents for the opportunity they give me to serve.
This is not a full-time job being a representative. What is it you do in the real world?
My wife and I have a small company. We're in the real estate business together. I sell some commercial real estate, and she sells some residential real estate, and we help each other out.
So you're a broker?
We help each other out as we can, right, in the real estate
business. And the brokerage
business.
is what?
We're under Keller Williams, which there are five
okay.
Keller Williams offices in this area, and we're one of those, and that's what we do in our real world.
Fine company. I've got several friends that work for Keller Williams here in the Tampa Bay area, and they all enjoy it very much.
It's a great company.
It's difficult to be a representative because I imagine your phone rings off the hook constantly with people wanting to do this, that, and another thing. Do you find that difficult?
I find, shifting gears is a little bit difficult sometimes during the day, where you have to shift from your private work to your public work, and that's sometimes difficult. But the phone ringing off the hook is not a problem. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy meeting the folks, who I talk to. So I don't think the demands of the people. That's the rewarding part of the job is helping people and talking to people and hearing what's going on out there in the community. To me, that's the rewarding part. The challenging part, you're right, is sometimes just shifting gears between the multiple tasks that you have to do. But the most important one I have to do is be a dad and a husband, and I try to make sure that one always takes top priority.
Well, I think being in politics, that's something that a couple others ought to have thought about real hard. Because there's too many people watching. I don't understand people like Governor Stanford, too many people watching. I've gone to the Appalachian Trail. Come on.
Right, and I'm down in there.
But I really appreciate your coming on the show.
Thank you.
And to talking about the issues that people want to hear about and be willing to field questions and defend positions. It's really great that a person like yourself will walk in, and we didn't beforehand decide we're going to talk about this, that, or another thing. You just said, ask me anything you want, and that's what I did.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the opportunity very much. Thanks so much, Bill, and thanks for all you do for the community.
Oh, you're very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, and we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And again, Representative McKe, thanks for being here.
Thanks again.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges. Spotlight on Government is not conflict television, but rather a safe and sane place for public servants to express their views and communicate directly with their constituents. Those who would scream and yell to rudely disrupt informational meetings have no place on our show. However, if you are one of the people who really wants to learn what's happening at all levels of government, this is the place for you.